Hello and welcome to Money Tips. I'm about to start the broadcast in a few minutes, just inviting a few people to come on and join us. I won't be specifically talking about the vaccine, but I've read a headline today that the big tech giants and the healthcare groups are trying to set up, or probably have set up, what's called, they would call a digital passport, which will mean that this digital passport, which will tell people that you've had the vaccination, and will probably be used by airlines and governments to stop people moving around unless you've had this vaccine, whether you like it or not. So it looks like if people still object to the vaccine, don't want to have it, they are going to be more or less imprisoned in their own homes, well, certainly in their own country. So that's not particularly what I wanted to talk about today. But anyway, welcome to Money Tips. And what I did want to talk about today is the support that's available in the UK. I know a lot of you are not watching from the UK, but there is some support available in the UK for UK businesses and workers affected by this COVID-19 disruption, and that's been going on for nearly a year now. So following the third lockdown, we're in the third lockdown here in the UK, starting 5th of January. Really, we barely got through Christmas. We had a lockdown at Tier 3 just before Christmas in most places. Then it went into Tier 4 in January. The UK Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, announced a further £4.6 billion worth of grants to retail, hospitality and leisure. This is the new round of support following extensions to the job retention scheme, the loan scheme, and so on. And there may be more to come in the budget in March. But anyway, the new lockdown, I'll run through the new lockdown grant in case as a business you're not fully aware of this. But the new grants closed for retail and hospitality, for closed retail rather, and hospitality have been introduced. These are grants in addition to other forms of support, such as the lockdown restriction support grants. I know it's quite complicated, these, but I'm going to put the links up on my website, moneytipsdaily.com, and which businesses that were forced to close between the 5th of November and 2nd of December 2000. So new grants are available: £4,000 for businesses with a rateable value, that's to do with the business rates of under £15,000 and under, £6,000 if you've got a rateable value between 15 and 51, £9,000 for businesses with a rateable value over 51,000. And in addition, just under £600 million will be made available to local authorities and devolved administrations to support businesses not eligible for those grants, and this might be affected by the latest restrictions. Businesses should apply to your local authority. So wherever you are, whatever borough you're in, your London borough or your district borough or your mayor of your city, you've got to apply to those areas for local grants. I mean, I know in a lot of areas, things like parking areas have been closed down completely, which is affecting takeaway businesses. So there's a lot of disruption, particularly for physical businesses. Online businesses seem to be booming, but physical businesses have been really badly affected by all of this. I'm just going to close this door here. It's probably a bit distracting seeing my cupboard full of files. So what else is available? Well, there is, of course, the coronavirus job retention scheme, which obviously benefits employees. Employees get paid, but it mainly benefits the employers who are able to lay people off without sort of getting rid of them or making them redundant. They can effectively furlough them and say, well, stay at home, and then the government will pay up to 80% of their salary. Now, believe it or not, nearly 10 million people are on this scheme at the moment, and from over 1.2 million employers. So employers are really taking advantage of this scheme, and the cost has exceeded last year alone 43 billion, and that was at November. So it could have reached 50 billion by the end of the year. So it's an enormous cost, and it's all right for the Chancellor throwing this money around, but eventually it has to be paid by the taxpayers, and that could mean tax rises in March, or certainly tax rises on soft targets like landlords, for instance, or people with a bit of money. I'm sure that tax rises are going to come in to partly pay for this. At the moment, it's borrowed money. The government has borrowed hundreds of billions of pounds last year. This whole mess has cost 300 billion in last year. That was the estimate anyway. But on the 17th of December, the Chancellor announced a further 1 month extension of the financial support under this job retention scheme, and it's going to run till the end of April. And this is, I'm assuming that this means that the economy will be shut down until Easter, at least. Last year they were talking about having it locked down, in March, and to be ready for the summer. And then the summer came, and then it was, we need another lockdown so we can have a good Christmas. We didn't have a good Christmas, and now they're talking about Easter. And then what? Is it then going to be into summer of 2021 before we can get things back to normal? And the overall cost in I've been through that. The overall cost in 2020 was 43 billion. That was just for the job retention scheme. So that scheme will run. It will pay 80% of the salary up to a maximum of 2,500. And a lot of people are on furlough, sitting at home doing nothing. And personally, I feel that some employers and some large companies are taking advantage of this. Well, why not? The money's there. Let's grab some of it. It is benefiting big business. Meanwhile, a lot of self-employed people and small businesses are slipping through this net and getting nothing. And partly, I went through this recently, and that's on my website, the SACE grant, which I'm going to go through in a second. But a lot of people are slipping through this net and not getting anything, while big companies are really raking it in with these schemes. So have a look at that. Have a look at the furlough scheme. I expect there's not much you can do if you're an employee. You're either on it or you're not. If you're an employer, maybe you can put people on that if your business is really suffering. You might even be able to put yourself on it if you are employing yourself under a limited company. Then, of course, there's the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, the SACE, as it's called. Not much change there, but it's been extended through to April again. A big hint that this lockdown is going to continue, and that will cover losses of profits. And I put on my website how to apply for this. But again, I said a lot of small businesses have fallen through the net and not getting anything. Some of them because they're not paid enough tax in the last year, or recently started their business, or it's almost like a tax rebate because it's based on your taxable income in the past. Now the government have obviously doing this to try and keep the economy going. We have to sort of applaud them in that way, that at least the economy hasn't completely collapsed, although it is the worst recession in something like 300 years. But at least people are not literally on the streets, so it is something. But food banks are very busy. There's a big hoo-ha here about providing school meals for kids that are being homeschooled. Apparently the school meals that were being provided through a private company were not adequate, and parents were saying on the TV, well, I've got 4 kids and I can't feed them, so it's up to the government to help me. Well, yeah, okay, some people are in that position. So there are additional support measures. The Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, published fresh guidance across a range of issues, including mortgages, consumer credit loans, where you could get payment holidays, and so on. So if you're struggling to pay a loan, have a look at that. Again, I put the link up on my website for any additional support you can get. A lot of people are not paying their mortgages or not paying their rents at the moment, and the fear is that when that scheme eventually ends here and in America, that there might be a surge in people in trouble, repossessions, and so on, and that could mean a problem with the property market. And the government hints at these further lockdown measures even still, because the rates are going up in the UK with this new variant, so-called new variant. And the Federation of Small Businesses the other day said that 250,000 small businesses could go bust this year, or are likely to go bust. And that doesn't surprise me, because I know a lot of businesses. When I was running a company and we employed people, there's no way we could have survived for 3-4 months without income coming in, even with a furlough scheme, because we had bills to pay. We had a lot of bills to pay, rent and rates and all the rest of it. Other costs other than salaries. There was no way we could have survived more than a few months, really, unless the bank were prepared to bail us out and put a lot of money in. This is because most businesses run on fairly much of a knife edge. They're getting money, they're paying money out to people, suppliers and that sort of thing, and then they're chasing money in from people. Well, if the person you're chasing money to goes under, if they go bust, then that means you're not going to get paid for that money yourself, and that has a domino effect. So it could cause you to go bust because that big customer of yours has gone bust, hasn't paid what they owed you. And there are some large companies that have gone bust last year. Big retailers gone into administration, Debenhams and House of Fraser and lots of other large retailers have gone under, and that will affect a multitude of smaller businesses supplying to those companies. And a lot of big companies are hanging on by a thread. We heard of Norwegian Air today, and I think we've got someone online here from Norway. I can see Dagmar. Norwegian Air, the budget airline, which was trying to break into the long haul market, they haven't gone bust because they've had a big bailout from the Norwegian government, but they've stopped their long haul business. They say they can't continue it at the moment. Well, I'm not surprised. And that will affect in the UK 1,100 jobs. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Companies are laying off people left, right and centre, and it's only set to continue as we go through this, and we don't get the economy back. We need to get the economy back up and running. I know there's a coronavirus out there, but I think the government have got to do more to get us somehow back up and running so that we're not just paying out this money and borrowing more money. And, if you look at the number of people already on benefits, even before this crisis, if I go back to, the figures are only out for up to February 2019. We haven't got the latest figures, but, at that time there were 250,000 people seeking job seekers allowance, nearly 500,000 on income support, carers allowance, 1.3 million, attendance allowance, that's another sort of disability type benefit, 1.5 million. Pension credit, 1.6 million. Disability living allowance, 1.6 million people. These are. Employment and support allowance, 2 million. Personal independence payment, 2 million. Housing benefit, 3.7 million people on housing benefit as of February 2019. And that's on the DWP figures. State pension, people on state pension, 12.6 million at that time. Of course, the state pension, there's no fund there for the state pension. The state pension is based on money that was been paid in over a lifetime of someone's working life, and then is paid out in today's money. So if someone said, well, I've paid in all my life for the last 40 years, yeah, you might have been paying in the last 40 years since 1975. But in 1975, when you were earning £30 a week, for instance, or £50 a week, you were paying maybe £2 or £3 a week into this pension scheme. Well, now you're drawing £100 a week from this pension scheme. So, and the government didn't save that £2 a week; they spent it, and then now they're just taking money out of the tax take and paying out these 12.6 million state pensions. So in effect, it's like a giant Ponzi scheme, really. If I did this sort of scheme and collected money from people and paid it out like Bernie Madoff, I would be put in prison like he has. But the governments in here and in America and all over the world are doing exactly this. So you can imagine the strain on the system and the amount of borrowing that's taken effect. And to me, the only effect of this will be some sort of financial collapse in the near future or sometime in the next couple of years. So get ready for that. Make sure your money's protected. Make sure you have something. Maybe you've got, if you have investments, make sure you've got diversity there. That you're not all your eggs are not in one basket. Look to invest in assets that are safe. I'm not your investment advisor, so I can't give you investment advice. But you've got to think about things that are safe in any economy. Gold is mentioned, that gold is a safe haven through good times and bad. But who knows? I can't tell you. the problem with gold is it doesn't give you an income. Property, all right, property prices are high at the moment, but at least I feel with property, it's a long-term bet. It's still a reasonably safe investment. Government bonds, depending on which government you are giving your money to, are reasonably safe. Obviously, cash is safe, but cash is losing its value as all this money is being printed in America and here. So, well, you've got to look at your own investment portfolio if you have a portfolio. If you haven't got a portfolio, then you need to start saving so that you have something in the background. As I suggest in my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness. It's not just a philosophical book. It actually goes through practical steps of managing your money and having something aside. I mean, I talk about the smart money management system, for instance. So it's a practical book on managing money because, as we found out in this crisis, a lot of people have no savings whatsoever. They work for 20, 30 years and then they're laid off by their employer. The employer goes bust, they lose their job, and they haven't got more than a few £100s in savings. This is the same in America, the so-called, as the senators were saying, the greatest country in the world, and certainly the biggest economy in the world, the biggest economy the world's ever seen. And yet so many of those people that were in this economy didn't have more than a few $100s in savings when the stuff hit the fan. And you don't want to be in that position where you're caught with your pants down with nothing when you lose your job and then you've got all these payments to make, loans or mortgages or rent. You don't want to be in this position where you're literally caught with your pants down. So make sure, perhaps have a look at my book and certainly follow me on my website, moneytipsdaily.com for my blogs and tips on money and so on. And please subscribe to my newsletter. So I think that's all I can really say to you. I'm sorry it's a bit of a doom and gloom, but we're in a bit of a doom and gloom world at the moment. In the UK, we're all locked away. We're not allowed to go out of our home without a reasonable excuse. You can be fined for just going out and just walking around in a place that's deemed to be not local, even though the law doesn't actually specify what is local. 2 women were fined last weekend for travelling all over 5 miles to a beauty spot and walking with a cup of coffee, and the police said, "You're having a picnic." I think they're having a laugh. Sure, yeah, they said that having a cup of coffee constitutes having a picnic, which is not allowed. And they were deemed not to be local, but they said they drove there in 10 minutes. I don't know. It really has got crazy. And, the police are in a difficult position. They're trying to enforce sometimes what they don't know the difference between law and guidance. So they're trying to enforce guidance, which is not law. You can't fine someone for not following guidance. And as with English law, it's often up to courts to interpret the law, but it does leave people in a difficult position. Those fines were rescinded by Derbyshire Police in the end after a big public hoo-ha, although we don't really know the exact conversation that went on between them and the 2 ladies. Maybe the police politely asked them to leave and they refused. Maybe that's why they were fined. We don't know the whole conversation, but I don't know what it's like where you are. Other countries have got similar lockdowns. I don't know what it's like in Scandinavia. Scandinavia didn't take such a severe approach as the UK, but they say that Sweden is now seeing a rise in cases. But the economies of the countries in Scandinavia did not appear to suffer as much as the UK. And China seems to be back on its feet after this disease was spread from China to the rest of the world. So from the point of view of China becoming an emerging power, it's worked very well for China, hasn't it? Because the US is really suffering. And the West is suffering while they seem to be back in business and up and running. And here we are going through this second wave of this virus, this terrible virus. So all I can say is be safe out there. Try and keep going as much as you can. If you have a business, try and adapt your business to working online. And over the next few weeks, I'll be going through some techniques you can use to do that, to get yourself online. Because the online market is booming. Jeff Bezos, Amazon is just, he's becoming richer and richer, as are Zuckerberg and the owners of Google. They're just becoming more and more wealthy as more and more stuff is done online. So if you were a conspiracy theorist, you might say, oh, well, this has been created by Silicon Valley to get us all to be working online, to not have meetings anymore, to just do everything on Zoom and, you know, on Microsoft Teams and Facebook, and you know, to almost stop us meeting and stop us moving around, so we can all be tracked and stay online all day and read ads from Google and Facebook. But you know, I can't say, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but that you almost couldn't make it up, could you? If you want to make a movie about it and you made this movie, people say it can't be true. It's not real. But we're not in a movie. This is real at the moment, and this is what's happening. So wherever you are in the world, I hope things are okay for you, and you know, we will get out of this eventually. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We've just got to make sure that it's not the headlamp of an oncoming train. So we will get out of this, I'm sure. Maybe by Easter 2021, maybe by Easter 2022, who knows? But it looks like big tech have already put in place some sort of digital passport, so that if you don't have that thing in your arm, you're not moving anywhere, you're not going anywhere, and eventually you might be ostracised or barred from you know, certain government services, or even going to your doctor or hospital. Who knows? The world seems obsessed with giving us vaccinations at the moment. Fairly untested vaccinations, I must say, but yeah, they have gone through tests. But it just seems like all we hear on the news every day is vaccinations, get them out faster. Let's do 24-hour vaccinations. Let's get these shots in people's arms. And you know, another company has been authorised to sell this vaccine to us, or put this vaccine in our arm. I've just never heard anything like it. It's gone vaccination crazy. I've just never seen anything like this in my life. Yeah, we've had vaccines as children when we had no choice, and yeah, some vaccines have done very well to cut down disease in the world. But we have to remember that most of those viruses are still with us, and you can't actually kill viruses. You can get rid of them for a certain amount of time, but just like a flu jab, you know, you're only dealing with it in that year. Next year they have to bring in another jab. And so if you're a big pharma company, then yeah, great, we've got a new source of business. Have a vaccine every 6 months or every year to keep people pumped up with this new vaccine. So that's another theory of mine. Is this a big pharma creation? I don't think so, but you can see how it would benefit big pharma, and that's why Warren Buffett actually invested billions of dollars last year, after not doing much for several years, in 6 big pharmaceutical companies, or the big pharmas as they're known. So there you go. Have a great day. Have a great evening wherever you are. And thanks for tuning in. Please like my posts and share them if you're able to. But I'll be seeing you again very soon. Thanks for listening. This is Charles Kelly, bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate, and enjoy more money. Hi to everyone watching. Great to see you, Dagmar. I hope everything is okay there in Norway, where you are. Less densely populated than the UK, so perhaps things are not as bad as things are here. So thanks for listening, and have a great evening. Bye for now.